Hello. So happy Thursday. I am currently watering plants for my girlfriend who's away in Japan. Um, so that's why I'm in a strange location live streaming, but her apartment is so relaxing. Like, I want to live stream here. Look how much better the connection is, right? Like, it's not getting all pixely. That's cool. Hopefully, I'll be able to figure that out how to do that in my own house. But anyway, exciting news today. The free monthly newsletter comes out. That's awesome. It has so much cool stuff in there, like updates on new classes, travel schedule, a bunch of new releases of photos that will be coming to Patreon this month, which is all new stuff. I have the new collaborations with Scrappy Radish, which you guys really love. We did a femininity study and a masculinity study, inspired by the ongoing projects that I have on both of those subjects. This time, we chose Hillary to be the subject for the femininity study because she is someone who identifies as a woman. And then I was the model for the masculinity study, just kind of, and they're both a little bit unpacking our relationship with that energy, right? I'm a non-binary human being, so I fluctuate very much. I don't necessarily identify with man or woman. Sometimes one of them fits, sometimes none of them fit. It's a pretty confusing thing. I had just gotten to a point where I was like, oh, I'm just a gay woman. And then I was like, wait, there's so much more to that, you know? So we had a great time. That was in Staten Island. And I had this crazy idea. And I was like, Hillary, can you sit upside down, first of all? Second of all, could you crack this egg and get it to sit on the vulva? Is that a thing we can do? And like, y'all, you don't understand how slippery egg yolks are. Actually, it is a thing you can sort of do, but it only lasts for a couple seconds. So anyway, we did a great job at attempting to make that happen. And it came out really cool. Like all of these kinds of things are very spontaneously built. We start with an idea and we're like, all right, well, what resources do we have? And it's usually like Airbnbs that we turn into studios because we're broke. We're both self-employed artists. And what else do you do? But it's amazing what we're able to do. Like, seriously, one of my favorite collaborators ever. And super excited to say that she will actually be joining me in Toronto and Montreal and possibly all the way to Boston. So we will have a load of time together on this tour. I've also added a couple new locations to the tour. I'm going to be coming through New Hampshire and Connecticut, even Southern Maine, Vermont, all of New York, the whole fucking state, which is much bigger than I anticipated. So yeah, lots of really great stuff. Also, you can now pledge to Patreon to follow for free. You don't actually have to be a contributor. I would love if you would. Like for less than a cup of coffee, you can help me make art. That's pretty amazing, right? Like think about it. You probably spend, if you're a coffee or tea drinker, anywhere from $3 to $5 a day on that habit. You spend just that much a month on art. And I kid you not, like that's the biggest tier I have is my smallest tier, which is like $1 to $5. And you still get a load of stuff. Like you still get everything on Instagram that's uncensored, plus more, plus the blog posts and like any of the cool shit I find, which there's a lot of articles on there. There's a lot of like, I found this cool book, you should read it. I do a lot of book reviews. I have that whole feminist lit section on my website, which you can check out, which is all about like books that promote the welfare of all human beings, right? Like books that are going to help us to adapt to this pretty fucked world. Right. So loads of resources, loads of online classes coming. My next video is going to be a tutorial for new models, which is something that you guys have been asking me for a long time. And I actually have done this several times for individual people, like just like making like short videos and sending it to them personally. And I guess I lost them. I'm like, I know I've done this before and I fucking lost them, but it's okay because all the information lives inside me. So we're going to do a bigger one that's just general shit you should know for new models. And there's going to be a lot on there for new photographers as well, because there's a lot of crossover. And I think it's super important if you're a new model to know what are the expectations that you should have for the behavior that photographers will display when you're, on set with them, as well as for photographers, like how to be able to, if you're a new photographer and someone's telling you they're a model and they're asking you to pay them, you want to know if they're a professional or not, or if they're worth the money that they're charging. So we're going to talk a little bit about, how to get the most out of your collaborators, how to tell if somebody is legitimately a professional or if they're the kind of person that literally just took the word professional and threw it in front of this thing, even though they don't have the expertise, experience, or knowledge to really claim that. Because, like if you want to be a professional dentist, you have to get a degree, right? Well, you don't have to get a formal degree for photography, but like there still there is a degree of expertise you need to have before you start calling yourself a professional. And unfortunately, because of the nature of the industry and how oversaturated it is, and how easy it is to get started, like it's very easy to trick people who are not photographers into thinking that you who just bought your like Canon Rebel is a professional photographer, because there's a lot of filter packages out there. And generally speaking, people are used to the shitty, boring, meaningless imagery that they see in advertisements, which thanks to censorship is the only thing you see on Facebook anymore. And largely the only thing you're going to see on Instagram in the future because of the way that they've been shadow banning all creative content. That being said, it's not totally hopeless. Like it feels kind of overwhelming. And to be honest, like if I had started now and not like 10, 12 years ago, like I did, I really don't know that I could be doing this full time as a non-agency represented model. I started off independently. I'm completely self-taught. And I say self-taught, but I also want to take into consideration that that does include workshops, online courses, collaborators that have been generous enough to give me their time and attention, mentors that I have hired, photographers who I have hired for individual coaching. Like when I say self-taught, I mean my community taught me. I mean, it was not like I didn't go to a university and like get a degree. That's what I mean. I don't mean to say that there's any such thing as an independent success in this world, because there genuinely is not. Like genuinely that doesn't exist. We are not independent people, really. We're interdependent because we're herd animals and we're supposed to understand how to communicate and cooperate for the purpose of our fucking survival, which we seem to be failing at lately, but I digress. So loads of really cool stuff coming. And if you are far away, you're in Australia, I don't know, you're like West Coast and I'm not going to be out there for another couple years, just remember the coaching sessions can be done through Skype. We can talk about, the nuances of posing, and we can talk about all of these important things through video. I don't need to physically hands-on adjust you like we're in a yoga class, right? Like I can give you those descriptions visually if we're on a Skype or FaceTime chat. So I also offer model coaching for that reason, and photographer coaching as well. Like I have it on there as creative coaching because really it doesn't matter what your medium is. There are some things which not a lot of I was in corporate marketing for years. So I've kind of adapted the structures and the way that they play the game, because capitalism is literally a fucking game, like built by a bunch of rich ass white kids. It's a game. And unfortunately it does not play by fair rules. The algorithm doesn't fucking care about you. It's pretty heartless. And so, using these tactics, we can kind of be responsible with the knowledge that corporate and advertising companies take and abuse that power, right? We can use that responsibly for the purpose of uplifting artists and making creativity and, art and culture, which was the foundation of our human civilization, elevating that to a position of importance again. And elevating it to a position of importance, not to distract you from life, but to help you digest the experiences that you're having and to connect you to the greater whole through those sufferings, through those experiences, and to demonstrate the way that you are interconnected, right? Which currently our media does the exact opposite. It's very divisive. It's very whitewashed. It's very much not true to life. They're all images taken on digital cameras. In these tutorial videos, I talk a lot about the difference between digital and analog. It's a much more severe difference than we really understand. Like The human eye sees the world as a 35 millimeter lens does. It sees the world as color film does. It doesn't see the world in hyper detailed, like macro images like digital does. The digital camera literally reads more of the spectrum of light than the human eye can. So think about it. So even if you don't over Photoshop your images, every digital image you see is not an accurate representation of reality according to the way that you experience it, because your eyes will never see the way that that camera sees. So if you think about it, we are literally living in a holographic universe. We're living in a universe that was completely manipulated and crafted by people, and it does not reflect the natural nature and environment in which we have evolved for like millennia. So this gives, you know, it's fertile grounds for a whole host of like all kinds of fuckery. So my intention with these tutorials is to give you little roadblocks, just like little, you know, little like markers, just to be like, oh, you see that? That's the bullshit. You see that over there? That's also the bullshit. Stay away from that. That's real. Here's how you know. Like these kinds of things, right? Like shit that I wish people told me when I was just starting out, so I would have an understanding of how to not get into situations that are super challenging before I have the ability to meet them, right? Like there's a difference between situations that are like dangerous that we can potentially navigate out of if we have the self-awareness and self-defense techniques or the knowledge necessary to allow us to know, because there's always a tipping point in a situation, right? Where like, if you're able to recognize, you might be able to get out. And then there's also a point in every situation where if that opportunity is passed, okay, now we're in a difficult situation. And when you are meeting with strangers at any time, meeting with strangers is always a risk. Meeting with anybody is a risk. So there are very simple things that you can do to stay safe. References being first and foremost the biggest thing. And we'll talk about what is a good reference. Some people, you know, you also need to be able to tell when someone gives you a reference that's like kind of been, you know, like you can tell that there's something else they're not telling you, right? So things like that, who's reputable to get a reference from, posing techniques, networking techniques, you know, a little bit of technical stuff, but I try to stay away from too much technical shit because God, there's so many people that are like all about the gear and like all about this technical jargon. And honestly, like the overemphasis on the technical elements of art is largely the problem with formal art schools. Like I have a lot of friends that had the money to be formally educated, which is amazing. And like, do I envy that? Kind of, but also a little bit not really, because when I see the gaps in their education, I realize that the technical skills are things that I was able to teach myself. But there are things that you cannot teach yourself that are not technical skills, that are self-awareness techniques, that are literally you excavating who you are as a person. It's deep, deep personal work. To get to your best creative work, there is a lot of emotional and spiritual and mental like work that we have to do to get to what makes us this unique, like irreplaceable person. Something that is real is irreplaceable. You are irreplaceable. Like the way you see the world, no one else has ever seen it that way. No one else will ever see it that way, right? That's amazing. That's fucking exceptional. Those little things that are going to shape what is your voice are things that you're going to have to dig deep to find. They're not something that I can tell you with aperture and ISO and shutter speed how to find, right? So I try to stay away from so much technical jargon, which also can be a barrier for people who don't understand that language, and use real words, real conversation, walking you through just trying to communicate things that have literally, I'm not even kidding you, saved my life and also made my career. So if it sounds like something you'd be into, I hope I'll see you there. I'll definitely share it on the monthly newsletter next month. It'll also be on Patreon first and foremost, always and forever. I'll also be doing some follow-up videos that'll be actually nude, which those will be fully on Patreon. And those will be like, you know, behind the scenes of actual shoots I'm doing. Like, do you want to watch how we literally build a concept out of nothing? Because most of the time, like my set materials, like for my projects, unless it's someone hiring me because they have a grant or they have a budget, for the most part, like my projects are all based off found materials, which is trash. which is shit I find. And you can do that too. It's really easy and it's super cheap, which is what I love. It's not all about the budget. It's not about the gear you have or the technical expertise. Like those things really help. But ultimately, I see a lot of people that are like, their technicality is amazing, but their images say nothing. They say nothing other than, here's pretty white woman who already looks exactly like you would expect Sports Illustrated cover to look. I photoshopped everything about her that was real. Now she's just a fucking Barbie doll. Boring. Boring. It's not art. There's a quote that I love by Picasso that's all over my website and all over my Model Mayhem because it's the most important quote ever. And it's, if it is chaste, it is not art. It is safe. If it does not provoke a feeling, it is not art. And I'm sorry, but like we have been oversaturated with like advertisements, which is the ultimate not art. It's the antithesis of art. It has taken the tools that art exists in and completely gone against everything. Like art is about the process. It is very much about the process. The art object, the value placed on an art object often undermines the creative process. And the tutorials and the things that I'm going to be talking about are ways to escape that, right? There was an exhibition called Arte Parfera that was in, I think it was central Italy. I think it was near, where was it? It was like central. It was like north of Rome. I forget, small town. Anyway, it was essentially a protest against the art object and the way that capitalism and the art object has completely like destroyed this whole system that supported artists and supported culture, and that promoted art as like a community good of value, like a contribution, right? Like a lot of people, when I say I'm an artist, they're like, why don't you want to go get a job? And I'm like, do you think I don't work hard? Do you think I don't work over 100 hours a week, still living with chronic illness, multiple autoimmune conditions, debilitating joint pain, and a child that's not 10 yet, right? Like, there's nothing about being an artist that implies that you are lazy. This is a hard fucking job, guys. This is the hardest job, actually. You know what's a lot easier? Not having to think for yourself and going to a job that guarantees that when you get old and sick, you'll have health care and you'll have, a little bit to live off of so you can retire and someone will just tell you every day of your life until then. Okay? That would be much easier. And I've tried that. And it was like, I guess, except for the fact that I landed myself in physical therapy because sitting down is literally horrible for all people's bodies, particularly people's bodies that have structural irregularities like mine with Ehlers-Danlos and my fucked up collagen. So just like people who act like people be gay just for the attention. Like, you know how hard it is? Like, who would fucking choose to suffer and go through the discrimination and go through the absolute insanity that it is to live as a person that is outside of this cisgendered, heteronormative standard, white standard, right, of like the Western world? Like, that's something you got to fight for. Who would choose that if you didn't have to? Who would choose that if you weren't born into it, right? And there are a lot of people out there who are suffering because they are artists inside and they don't think that they have the ability to choose creativity. They don't think that they have the ability to find creativity in the shit-ass job they have, whatever that is. And it's not saying you can't. You can. It's about a shift in perspective. But you can also do those other jobs and still be an artist. Just because you don't make a living off of art doesn't mean that you don't have this divine creative spark within you, right? So these tutorials are for all creative people. Even if you don't consider yourself to be creative, you have that creative spark inside you, which means that you also suffer from not doing creative things, whether or not you're aware of it. We're taught to believe that like every emotional pain that we have is guaranteed to be a result of some personal fuckery in our nuclear family that has damaged us. It's not. It's not really. It might be, but chances are it's a reflection of the fact that our society is not shaped in a way that actually serves human needs, which are creativity, connection, communication, all of these things, right? Like what is the pursuit of liberty and happiness? It's those things. It's being connected. It's knowing who you are, which you only discover through creativity and other people, all of these things. So even if you don't consider yourself to be an artist, I highly recommend you checking out some of these tutorials. Subscribe. They will be coming over the next couple of weeks. I'm trying to do about 1 video a week until we get there. So we'll see. And sign up for that newsletter if you haven't yet, because all the classes will be posted there first. And then I make them live to the page after that. So yeah, also you get like first dibs on all the early bird pricing, which is up to $100 off, which is fucking awesome. But also, if you miss that and you're someone who has a financial need situation, we always offer, or when I'm the host and in complete control of the situation, I always offer sliding scale pricing for people who have financial need. Granted, you have to apply for that, right? It's not just like a handout. It's like you have to apply. Here's my portfolio. We can only give it away to a certain number of people. So it doesn't guarantee you a spot, but it does guarantee you the opportunity to have access to that. And let cost not be the barrier there. So please feel free to reach out. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, I'm on like Facebook, FetLife, all different kinds of shit. Twitter is great. I am on Instagram, begrudgingly, not super active on there though, because they keep deleting me every time I get past 15K, which is super annoying. It's probably because I'm hairy and brown, but whatever. It's fine. See you, Mark Zuckerberg. Anyway, look at these sick ass pants I have on right now. This is one of my favorite artists ever, Alex Gray, who does visionary art. Highly recommend. He's actually in Rappinger Falls, New York. If you haven't visited their art chapel yet, it's amazing. That's all I have for you today. But I love you a lot, and I hope the rest of your week is great, and I'll see you soon.